Tuesday, October 10th, 2006. Thank you, board members and administration joining us this evening, as well as members of the public. We'll get this meeting going with the start and the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, members of the board, you have an agenda before you for this evening's meeting. And I would ask for any comments or a motion for approval of the agenda.
I would move for approval of the agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Kaiserschak. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second by Mr. Holland. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion is approved. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the September 11th, 2006 regular session Board of Education meeting minutes. In the September 26, 2006 special and closed session Board of Education meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion for their approval.
Mr. President, I move the approval of the September 11th regular session Board of Education meeting, September 11th, 2006 annual Board of Education meeting minutes, and the September 26th special and closed session Board of Education meeting minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bell. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, motion is approved. We'll move on to item number 5, student staff recognitions. The Vice President and President-elect of Wisconsin National Board Network. Sandy.
We are pleased to recognize one of our staff members tonight. Matt Friedel is a Hudson High School history and government teacher, and he in September was elected as the Vice President, as Dan said, President-elect of the Wisconsin National Board Network. And the WNBN represents Wisconsin's 328 national board-certified teachers, and they work both in public and private school systems. And just to know that out of the nation, there's less than 2% of the nation's educators who have achieved this distinction. In Hudson, along with Matt, we have Terry Sweeney and Mary Wicker, both at Hudson Prairie, are nationally board-certified, as well as Judy White-Schley, German teacher at the high school, and Michael Yell, social studies at the middle school. And I've asked Matt to come on up, and he's going to share a little bit about what this position means. And you're going to see a true educator in form tonight.
Okay. Mr. Turnahoy, Hudson School Board members, Ms. Bowen Egebraten, Hudson School District Administration team, parents, and community members. On behalf of Wisconsin's National Board Certified Teachers, I'd like to thank you for this recognition tonight. I'm proud and humbled to be elected as Vice President and President-elect of this organization that represents the 328 Board Certified Teachers in the state of Wisconsin. Incidentally, I am the first non-Metro Milwaukee person elected to the post. So we're moving it out of that thing, so that's pretty cool. My duties will be to promote teacher improvement throughout the state of Wisconsin for the next 3 years, as well as providing candidate support. I thought what I'd do is just give you a brief explanation of the program so you can kind of see what this is, and then when we're done with this, you should see what brings me to here tonight. National Board started in 1983 with A Nation at Risk, when we started questioning what, in fact, we're doing with our schools. Okay, the Carnegie Foundation put together a program, and that was the task. What makes excellent teachers in excellent schools? And off of that, they came up with the 5 core propositions. 5 core propositions are content. Do you know what you're talking about? Okay, very simple, but yet you have to have an accomplishment with your content area. Second one is instruction. Do you know how to teach? Because just because you have the knowledge doesn't mean the kids are getting something out of that. The third core proposition is assessment. Do you know how to assess whether the kids have learned from your instruction, from the content you have given them? The fourth core proposition is reflection. Do you know why what you did worked and it wasn't just something that was happenstance? And can you improve it even more beyond that? And then the fifth component is parents and community and professional extensions, that you're not isolated in the classroom, but you're part of a larger network. Okay? Off of those 5 core propositions, they then developed over 20 different certificate areas. It is a voluntary program. It is high achieving. It is somewhat compared to the CPA or the medical boards. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of example of what that is as you go through it. I purposely volunteered to be part of this, and I had no clue what I was going to get out of it. And you really open your entire practice to inspection and assessment. Basically what you do is you start off with the standards. Okay? All of these are based on the 5 core propositions that we mentioned earlier. But please, since there are 20 different certificate areas, mine, for instance, are different than the tech eds or the vocational. We all have the same core propositions, but tech ed, vocational has their own niches that's appropriate to them rather than what I would have in social studies. Okay? So this is developed out of the standards. You then get a packet that looks like this, which is how to put the prompts together. Okay? And they will instruct you on certain things they are looking for, and it is up to you to put that together. You are limited with the number of pages you submit, the number of documents you submit, and how well you prove what you're set out to prove within those pages. So it's clear, it's convincing, and it's consistent, as well as concise, because everybody's limited with the pages, and it's all right here with it. Then they give you a scenario, and they give you a number of scenarios, and you need to prove what they're asking you to prove. Okay? Hundreds of hours later, you get this. Okay, this is what I had to put together in order to do this. I will tell you this is about 60% of the work, because the other part then that comes up with it is an assessment center. 3 hours of tests to prove that you know what you're talking about. You also supply videotapes to your classroom. Okay? But the idea is, can you prove what's on these tapes? It did lead to the instruction. So it's not the taping, it's the evidence that's on here that you have to cite. Okay? So hundreds of hours later, after doing this, after doing 3 hours worth of tests, you get a single sheet of paper. And on the inside is your score. Okay? You open the score, and if you get 275 or higher, you are achieved. Anything less than that, they allow you to go through a retake procedure, as do other professions that do that. My score, 274. I did not make it the first year. But I also say that because I think it made me even a better teacher, and I'm much more humble, and you can always go back and show that you're not perfect. Okay? And I think I'm also the first retake candidate that's going to be leading the statewide organization. So then you go through the process again. They don't tell you what's wrong with this. It is your job to figure out what's wrong with that to boost it the second time. Okay? Second time I got more than 275. So then I became board certified. Just like with the doctor, what do you call the person on the lowest score? You still call him doctor, right? It doesn't make any difference where you fall. Oh, man. Okay. So anyway, there's that part of it. Okay? What have I gotten out of this program once I achieved this in the year 2000? I'll first go over the intrinsic values. I got some plaques out of the deal. Okay? Now, this is what the national board sent. I had it professionally framed because, you know something, I'm darn proud of this. Because not anybody can do this. And it took an awful lot of work, and you kind of do it on your own, which is one of the disadvantages when I first did it. But you get a plaque. Okay? I had it all professionally mounted, and I actually hung this in my classroom in New Richmond. Okay? I also got another plaque. Okay, this is from my building principal. He knew that this was something, and none of us knew what this was, but he was right at the very beginning saying, this is cool, tell me what I can help you with. And I didn't know how to answer this because the program had just started. But we had a whole building celebration for us, doing something that none of us knew what it was. Incidentally, I also certified the same year of one of my colleagues. So it was a double party. It was just wonderful. Okay? Then I had that professionally framed. Also right next, because I thought it was cool that our building and my colleagues recognized it. And at a school board meeting, the school district of New Richmond also gave us a plaque. It was so cool, a standing ovation. Nobody knew what this was, but they knew it was something because not everybody can do it. And so when you talk about things that you can get out of it, you can get plaques. Okay, but that all means something. It means that other people have recognized what you've done. And I had these 3 plaques hanging on my wall in New Richmond. I haven't figured out how to put them on my wall yet here at Hudson. Although they are orange for New Richmond, so no offense. Okay. Okay, what else have I gotten out of it? Because of being nationally board certified, I have been asked to be on statewide committees, which is not one of my choices because I hate being pulled out of the classroom. It just drives me crazy. But I've had to learn to do that in order to do those things. Okay, I was asked to be on the PI 34 rollout committee through DPI, and I am now the teacher rep on these committees with those things. That led me to being on CISA's PI 34 review team to help them with that. That led me to UW River Falls, and I now mentor with the new teachers and help co-teach the new mentoring classes. So I'm starting to give back to the profession, and you notice what's happening. It's no longer extrinsic. It's turning intrinsic as you do this. Off of that, then I ended up going to working with the WEAC online subcourse, so I now facilitate teachers or substitute teachers online to get a certificate. Okay? Other things I've done, I've been invited to Washington, D.C., and I led our delegation at Washington, D.C. to visit all 10 of our congressional reps to continue for funding for offset the cost that comes with this. Wisconsin was one of the only delegations to see all 10 representatives. Republicans, Democrats, it made no difference. And since I chaired that committee, I had my picture taken with Representative Kind, Senator Feingold, Senator Cole. It's pretty cool. I show it to my government kids all the time. Okay. Last March, I was invited out to the NEA on behalf of the state of Wisconsin to help promote national board within the organization itself. And then that's going to lead us to what took us down to August. Okay, in August we had our summit, and literally I stepped out of the room for a couple of minutes, came back in, and they saw my name up as nominated for leading this organization for the next 2 years. And you're going to see this is the part that's going to be really, really fun. It shows you that you can be a risk taker. It shows it's very humbling as you go through the experience. Administrators, you are guaranteed of increased student performance with national board teachers because it's been proven study after study that it will increase student learning by having a national board teacher in the classrooms. Okay, parents and community, you get the collaboration. You know that you're getting the total child that works with it. So that's basically what it is. It's in the nutshell. It should be a lot of fun. I tell you, every single time I go out, I brag about the School District of Hudson. And it is so fun talking about the School District of Hudson. You have an incredible program here. I am so thankful to be employed here for the last 4 years. And I'm looking forward to many more years. And I look forward to representing us very well in the next 3 years at the state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freidel, and good luck with your work on the board. The next item of business before the board is correspondence. Cindy Crimmins?
Yes, we do have some correspondence tonight from the family of the Stiles, the death of Tom Stiles' mother. Tom is the owner of the Safeway Bus Company. Thank you for the flowers. Thank you very much for the support in this difficult time. The flowers were beautiful. Sincerely, the Stiles family. Also from the family of Dorothy Brown, who is board member Minnick's mother-in-law, a thank you card for our sympathies there. And from Karen Marsh, who is a retired teacher from North Hudson Elementary, a nice long thank you. I would like to say thank you for the open house you had at the golf course honoring service years of teachers and retirees. What a wonderful place to have such a get-together. The food was good and the program was fun. I also appreciated the gift certificate for some new books at Back to Books. I plan on picking out some travel books because travel will be in my retirement plans. Thanks. And she says she had enjoyed working for the Hudson School District the past 27 years, that it's been rewarding working with the students, the parents, and the staff, and that is the part that she'll miss. She leaves with many wonderful memories, and she thanks us for the opportunity to teach kids. And that's from Ms. Karen Marsh.
Thank you for those card. We'll move on to the reports. 2007-08 course proposals. Ms. Kovach.
Good evening. I first want to begin by just pointing out this is not a new course proposal. It is a course modification that we wanted to share with the school board this evening. If you have children at the high school, you've seen the course handbook, and you'll note that writing for the media is already a course at the high school. What the high school is proposing is that we have writing for the media 2 and 3. Currently, the Media 2 course does allow students to write articles for the True Blue Times. And when we look around the area, like districts that surround us, many of them bring the paper, the production of the paper, right into a course, just like we have the yearbook right into a course. So the proposal is that the writing for the Media 2 becomes the production, the writing, the articles, the editing, the whole piece of publishing the True Blue Times. The goal is to bring the numbers up in writing for the Media 2. And the reason we're also asking for 2/3, it's sort of like the yearbook as well, that hopefully we bring an 11th grader on as a kind of a trainee, as the editor, and then when they take it again as a senior and are the editors, that on the transcript it would then show up as writing for the Media 3. So for those students who do repeat the course, that they would have a different look on their transcript. So for the most part, it's moving Media 2 into the true development of the True Blue Times as the course. And recognize this takes many hours, and the students still will be doing after-school work, evening work to pull the paper off, but it does allow us a little more quality time with the instructor during that day as a course.
Do you have any questions from the board or administration?
I just would like to comment and commend the high school staff for looking at this course in a different way. Instead of bringing to you an addition, a course addition, they've looked at a course that has lower numbers and redesigning that course to increase the numbers and to serve our students and their needs, their learning needs. So that's why Sandy has brought this, and I really thank the high school for looking at it in this way.
Any other comments, questions from the board? I do have a brief question as it relates to, and I think you indicated or alluded to this, is that there's no additional staffing
Correct.
requirements.
No additional staffing, right.
Nor additional room or classroom space needed.
No additional space.
Okay.
The only piece, as indicated in the bottom, would just be if the numbers do grow, there may be some need for textbooks, but again, that'll depend on the number of students that register.
If there's no other comments, questions on that item, we'll move on to the Spring 2006 Community Focus Group Report. Superintendent Bowen Ingebrotten.
The focus group report you'll find on page 8, starting on page 8. If you will remember to last year, Melissa Winter was our previous communications specialist, and one of the last things she did in the district was look at, dig more deeply into some survey results. In April of 2005, Decision Resource conducted a scientific survey for us, and one of the findings of that survey, as they talked to people in our community, was that 82% of the people that responded said that they believe the quality of education in our district was good or excellent. Now, 82% is a very high number for a school district, and Decision Resource pointed that out, that they actually had not seen another district with that percentage. And so we wanted to know more about why our community felt that our schools are good or excellent. And so Melissa conducted a number of focus groups. It involved 30 of our Hudson community members. And some of those were parents, graduates, and a few community members who were part of that. And to qualify to be part of this focus group, or these focus groups, you had to agree with the statement, I believe the quality of education provided by the Hudson School District is either good or excellent, because we were digging deeper into why. So out of that focus group, out of those focus groups, and there were a number of them, Melissa expressed to me that she was very surprised how consistent the responses were from group to group. And actually 5 themes arose, and those 5 themes that she talked about were just as consistent as could be from each group. It really didn't make any difference what level it was. They were still saying very similar things that could be categorized in 5 different ways. So one of the ways was the staff. Number 1, these people that were involved in these groups said the people in our school district are very important. Teachers, principals, coaches, advisors, custodians, all of our staff really helped students connect, cared about the students, went over and above and beyond, cared about academic well-being of our students, and also their development beyond that, social emotional development as well. And they made many outstanding comments about our staff, and a few of those are listed here for you. Just one of them I'll point out. There's a very dedicated staff. Teachers are willing to put in the time and go out of their way to get to know their students' needs, and you just saw that demonstrated by a very passionate teacher of ours, Matt Friedel, as he talked about his work. And it's not only about being a nationally board certified teacher, it's about connecting and working with those students. So staff, it was the number 1 across all groups. Another theme was academic rigor, and all the groups felt that our students were challenged academically, and yet the district still recognized different students who were at different levels and respected that and met students where they are. So we were challenging and rewarding and allowed students to explore different areas too. A couple of the comments that parents made, as well as students: the curriculum is very impressive and always stays current to make it interesting to the students. And secondly, students leave here with a sense of confidence. Even if they're not on the top academically, a student can find success in a different ability, which helps build confidence. The third area was feeling connected. They commented about the small town feel that our school district represents, and the pride that our students and families and parents and staff have for the Hudson School District. And that connectedness was not only for students, but it was for parents as well, feeling connected with teachers and school leaders. And one of the comments that kept coming up that I think is really important to note, that principals got very high marks for not only being instructional and disciplinary leaders, but also their approachability and visibility within their schools. And I think that speaks very well of our leadership, our administrators and their leadership. Another area was educational and extracurricular opportunities. The focus group participants said there are rigorous academic programs such as AP in high school, quality music, and other programs, athletics, summer school, after-school programs, and they just went on about the opportunities for students to participate in learning opportunities, not only in the classroom that were rigorous, but also outside of the classroom, and to make choices about areas they wanted to be involved in, whether it was mentoring other students, whether it was being involved in Destination Imagination. They just could list many, many things that our students have the opportunity to select from and participate in. And then lastly, serving students with special needs. They recognized that we are very exceptional at helping students who have special needs, and this is a high-quality program that we have, and it helps our students be more accepting of others and identifying the needs and talents of students, no matter what their abilities are. And one of the comments from one of the participants was, the person next to you may be totally different and yet can learn something, you can learn something from them. They understand that there is another take on things. And I think that just speaks obviously to our leadership in that program, Nancy Sweet and all of the teachers that work in our special ed programs, but also all of our other teachers and staff who support and value all of our students. So I think that it's great to see that that's valued by our community as well. There are some recommendations. Again, the themes are staff, academic rigor, feeling connected, academic and extracurricular opportunities, and serving students with special needs. I certainly think that we should feel very proud of these kind of comments about the school district, and I'll let you read the 10 recommendations that they have in regard to moving forward and themes that are important for us to continue to highlight.
Thank you for that report. Very good information, and it's encouraging to hear, the positive feedback that we received from those groups. Moving on the agenda, we'll go to the superintendent's report on upcoming events, district highlights, the September 15th student enrollment count.
And now I would have you look at pages 8A and, I guess it's 11 and 12, agenda item 8A. And I'm going to kind of move back and forth between these two pages. The first page that you see on page 11 is the third Friday official September 15, 2006 count. And this is a similar count that's done in every district in the state of Wisconsin. It's done twice a year. It's done the third Friday in September and the second Friday in January. This is the count that as we add it up, we receive our state aid. They calculate our state aid, and so it's comparable to all of the other districts in the state. It includes all of our students, not only those that are in school all day, but students both that attend programs in other places like youth options. And so I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. I'd like you to turn to page 12, which is our K-12 district resident student count. And we created this form so that it was really showing what was happening with our growth in the district, and also comparable to not only our projected enrollments, but it was also, we could compare it to our capacities as well and how those were figured. So if you look at this page, I just want to point out the qualification at the bottom. It talks about what students are not included. And again, this is district student residents. It comes from that official count. It's consistent with that, but it doesn't include all of the students that are included in that official count. So it does not include early childhood students, open enrollment students, students with disabilities placed out of the district, preschool speech therapy students, alternative school students, GED students, and full-time youth option students. Those are very important students to us. Again, we think of them in our enrollment, but once again, when we're trying to compare to Dr. Reinhardt's enrollment projections that we speak about in our capacities, this is a more apples-to-apples look at that. So when we look at our K-12 district residents and what has happened over time, from last year, September 16th to September 15th of this year, at elementary, we had 198 students, growth of 9%. At the middle school, we had an addition of 18 students, and that was 1,110 students that are currently registered at the middle school and attending at the middle school. And that's a growth of 1.6%. And then at the high school, school, we have 1,700 district resident students, and that's a growth of 97 students from last year, or a growth of 6%. So overall in the district, from last year to this September, we've gained 313 students, and that's a growth of 6.45%. It's very significant growth in the district from one year to the next year. This certainly exceeds Dr. Reinhardt's projections for the district for this year, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. If we look back to the elementary growth, and I think one of the questions that has arisen as we've gone out and talked to the public is why are we focusing on the elementary? And I think just looking at that growth exceeds both middle school and the high school growth combined. So that growth of 9% of our 198 students at the elementary level is the most significant growth that we have in the district. I would also point out, if we just go to the grade 12 students. Right now, third Friday, we had 401 12th grade students. And just for your information, they started as a kindergarten class of 247 students. It's a growth of 62%. And 247, we have 401 now in 12th grade. And we are replacing, as that group graduates, we will be replacing them with a kindergarten class. You can see right now this year is 414 students. We have the same number in kindergarten first and second grade. That's unusual, but we do have 414th in all three of those grade levels. And so as they grow through the district, we expect them to continue to grow in size. It may not be at that 62%, but we do expect growth from the 414th. And they would be much larger classes when they got to high school. The year before, the 11th graders started at 262 students, and that was a growth of 61%. Any questions on that one?
Part of that growth is students who are coming from the parochial elementary schools, correct?
Absolutely. Well, both parochial and the middle school, so St. Pat's and Trinity, too. That's figured into that. Just for your information, Hazel Reinhardt's projections, if you want to look at those numbers, for this year at elementary, we have currently 2352, and her projection was 2248. At the middle school, we have 1,110 students, and her projection was 1,070. And at the high school, her projection, we have 1,700 students, and her projection was 1,667. So we exceeded all of her projections. Now I would turn your attention back to the third Friday count. And just one area that I want to speak about, because it seems to be confusing to a number of people, and that is our open enrollment. Open enrollment is a mandated state program, and that essentially means that non-district resident students can apply to attend a school in another district. And so we have students that both apply from another district to come into our district, and also students who apply from our district out to another district. And that happens across the state in February, and there are regulations that go along with that. If we have space in our schools, we are required to have those students come into our schools. And we have had a little bit of space in the past and have had students come into our schools. Many of the students that are included are students who have been here for a period of time. They may have started in this system, they may be in high school, and their family moved when they were sophomores in high school, and they would like to finish their education in the Hudson School District. They value it as well. And so they ask for open enrollment for their junior and senior year in high school. And so those are oftentimes the open enrollment students that we receive. Our open enrollment students, the number of students that actually went out of the district this year, total number is 28. and the number of students coming into the district, K-12, and I want to emphasize that's across all 7 of our schools, is 30. So we had a net gain of 2 additional students this year from those that are actually in our district. They are spread out, not at all of our schools. At the elementary level, EP Rock, Hudson Prairie, and North Hudson are over capacity. And there are no open enrollment students at Hudson Prairie or EP Rock. There are open enrollment students, the most at elementary, at Holton, where we've had the most room. Some who are continuing at North Hudson, a few, and 4 at Willow River. And then at the middle school, there are 7 across the 3 grade levels, and at the high school, there are 7 students across the 4 grade levels. I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have about any of this information.
Are there any questions from the board? Mr. Minnick.
One question, Mary. The student count of 5,262, am I correct? That is the number that goes into State of Wisconsin or DPI for third Friday count?
It is. So that, as you point out, Mr. Minnick, is definitely larger than 5,162 that are district residents. And those include district residents as well, but once again, there are certain students who are in different places. They're not here all days. For example, youth option students who are attending outside of our district can be district residents as well.
Right. Then, Mr. Chair, just one other quick comment. I'm really happy that Mary has put this information in front of the board tonight on open enrollment. I know a lot of people that I've met in the community, there's a real misunderstanding on open enrollment and the impact, and I think it's one of those cases that rumors feed on rumors that were, just huge numbers of open enrollment students. So I'm glad you clarified that and glad you presented the information this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? If not, Mary, if you want to continue on with the next agenda item, elementary space for learning, community information sessions, and community feedback. I will just mention briefly that I, along with most all of the other board members, had the opportunity to participate in these informational sessions, and I for one, found them very helpful in, getting a better gauge of the public sentiments regarding the elementary space issue, and I'm sure that will feed into some of the decision-making that takes place this evening. So, Mary, go ahead.
I'm passing out to you now. We had 2 sessions last night. One was a community information session, and one was a session that we were sharing information at an organization. And these were the final comments that are not included in the comments that you've had to read prior to this time. So I'm going to give you a little time to read that as I just recap some of the things that occurred. So we had, at this point, up to this point, we have had met with 15 groups of individuals in our community. There were 6 community information sessions that we had board members and administrative representation. And then we've also made presentations to both school and community groups, 9 of those. Our best estimates of how many residents we have met with is about 230 community members. That may be a little low, but we wanted to underestimate as opposed to overestimate. And you see in front of you, including the ones that you have tonight, 80 responses from the feedback forms that we distributed. So I'm going to just give you a few minutes just to read over that information and then take any comments that you have as well about this.
Some comments regarding the sessions that they may have attended and would like to share some of that feedback in addition to what's before you. Ms. Crimmins.
One thing I'd like to say about those meetings that I attended, and I think I did 4. they were, I think people had just really a wide range of questions, and it was really exciting to me to be engaged in discussion with the community about those things. I think they had great questions and a lot of good ideas and a lot of good comments, and I just wanted to thank everybody that came to those, because I really learned a lot from you, and I'd like to just continue to encourage the community to share with us. I don't want to lose that forum that we've begun to develop, and so just, don't stop giving input. Just keep calling us.
Any other board members? Mr. Holland.
I found it a real valuable time. And obviously, when we get into the public and in that type of setting, we can have open discussion and conversation about the needs, and it gives us the opportunity to hear from the community. I never think that's not valuable time. One question I have regarding the questions that we have before us, is there some organized approach that we're going to be taking to try to respond to these questions? Has there been any consideration of that?
We are in the process of putting together some responses to frequently asked questions. Some of the questions before you noticed that our presentation actually answered those questions. Some people filled them out ahead. We encouraged them to go look at information on our website, which is not only the PowerPoint that we shared and we've been updating, and we'll update again after your decisions this evening, but we're continuing to update that. So there is more information that they can receive that way. We will be starting to put responses up on our website soon, and probably continue to do that over time.
Good question. Anything more? Mr. Bill.
I just want to reiterate, again, it came up quite a bit. It's in here about as we focus on this acute issue at the elementary school, and we talked about our last meeting. I just want to continue to emphasize the focus on the high school, in both short-term and long-term. And we saw that as we walked in today with some students. I just want to. I think we need to continue to keep that as a focus in the facilities committee, and bring forward, fairly promptly a kind of a plan short-term for the high school, and while we're working on the long-term plan. So I just want to reiterate that again tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from other board members? If not, thank you, and thanks to members of the public for attending those sessions. We certainly appreciate the input, and as Mary indicated, look for more information that we'll put out both the newspaper, the website, and other means that we've used for communicating information in the past. That said, we'll move on to topics for action. The selection of the proposed new elementary school site. And as most board members know, we've had a pretty good discussion about the elementary school proposal and the various sites and options that we reviewed and narrowed down. And this evening, we're hopefully going to decide on an elementary school site to go forward with. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Minnick to provide that.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Very, very quickly, because I don't want to bore the board members. I know that we've been through this and through this and through this, so not a lot of new information. But first and foremost, I think what I would really like to do is extend a very heartfelt thank you to the other 6 board members. This has been a long process and a lot of independent thinking on the part of the board. And I couldn't be more proud to serve with the other 6 board members. And you've put a lot of time in. You've committed a lot of personal time, probably to the comments from your spouses. But I think this is a board that has done its homework and has been engaged and is well prepared to make decisions tonight. Having said that, as all of you are aware, There's really two sites under consideration with two options on one of the sites, and I'm going to quickly just run through them, mainly for the purpose of the public here in attendance this evening. The first option, or first site, is a new 588 elementary school on what the board knows as the Crosby Road site, on property immediately to the west or contiguous to the soccer field complex along County Road W. Estimated cost $15,972,000. Second location with two options, Cooley Trail, or also known as the County Road F site, immediately to the east of the YMCA Camp St. Croix, and also contiguous to County Road F. The two properties, or the two options there, are $15,540,000 estimated, and I do emphasize estimated cost, with water and sewer to be provided from the City of Hudson if we are to be approved for annexation. The second option, with a cost of $16,173,000, is same site capacity of 588 students, but not being annexed if we are not to be approved by the City of Hudson, and have on-site well, water, and on-site septic system. The only thing that I would ask, Mr. Chair, is just good, honest, open dialogue, which I know this board will certainly do. I have one request, and that would be that if a motion is in order tonight, that we do a roll call vote. I think this is a significant enough of a vote, and personally would like to see a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Minnick, and for that report. I believe Superintendent Bowen Ingebrotten has a few comments.
Well, I would just like you to hear some comments from SDS architects who are here to share some information about the sites before you deliberate in your decision-making. Tom Tuig, who you have met before, who was just recently visiting with us, and Tom Handley, who is an architect as well from SDS, is here to share information. I think they have a handout if somebody wants to get those copies.
Mr. Tuig, thank you for joining us this evening. If you could stand up to the microphone, and as we're passing out your handouts here.
Sure. Well, I'll wait till those are passed out, but I'm going to talk a little bit in a little more detail about the two sites that Dick talked about. In that packet, there's a description of the Crosby Road site, as Dick mentioned, which is on off of UU, right across from the soccer fields. It's a beautiful site of 26 acres. Unfortunately, it's not in the city limits right now, and it doesn't have any contiguous property that would allow it to be annexed into the city. So you've got options of an on-site well and septic system. So the description there talks a little more in detail about what that system would entail. It does obviously impact the cost, which Dick articulated, and it also impacts the schedule. With an on-site system, there's a little more design involved, and there's a little more review time by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. And if you read through that, I'll kind of skip over some of the highlights here, is that we submit soil samples to the DNR along with the design requirements, the size of the school, the estimated gallons per day, and then the DNR makes an assessment of that and comes up with a determination of what type of system would be required. It's either an on-site septic system, which is a drainage field, and we've had SEH, Short Elliott Hendrickson, do a preliminary design for that. And if you look at the site plan there, it takes up a fairly large area of the site, basically the same size as the school, for on-site septic. It's a little less expensive. The estimated cost for that is $550,000. The other option that the DNR may require is a mechanical system, which involves quite a bit more design and quite a bit more cost, and also a little bit longer review process. It's all based on the soils and the demand of the site, and the DNR makes a determination, which really then starts the design process by our consultants to get the right system. The cost that we carried in the estimate, which is on page 2, was for the more expensive system, just being the devil's advocate, that we included in there for that $15,972,000 total cost for that site. If you flip over to page 3, it's got a site plan of the Cooley Trail Highway F site, and as Dick mentioned, that has a parcel that's directly to the north of it that is in the city of Hudson, so you've got the option to annex into the city. You could also do on-site well and septic at this site as well, but we've listed the cost estimate for city utilities being extended to that site, which totals $500,000, which is less than an on-site well and septic system. There's some other features that we've included in the construction cost. One concern is the intersection at County Highway F and Cooley Trail, which comes together at an acute angle. We've included some money in the estimate for realigning that intersection, improving the sight lines, making it a little bit safer. The different types of systems also impact the schedule, and we've got some schedules laid out there, and I don't know if you want me to talk about that right now or just consider the site features and come back to the schedule later.
Does that conclude your...
I'm sorry, what?
Does that conclude your report, or...
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Tuig?
Mr. Chair, just one quick comment. Mr. Tuig, are you going to remain with us later to talk about schedule, construction, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, board members, we have this information before us as it relates to the two sites at Crosby and at Cooley Trail. You have the cost before you as it relates to the selection of the two sites. I guess my comment would be, as it relates to the Cooley Trail site, I think we've indicated that we would commit to the $15,540,000, and anything above that would be amounts that would come out of our dedicated fund balance that we've set aside for capital improvements. So those would be the choices before us. The Crosby Road at the $15,972,000, or the Cooley Trail site of the $15,540,000. We have some questions, comments, discussion, motions.
I have a request.
Ms. Crimmins.
I know that it is not this way on the agenda, but before we deliberate and make some decisions tonight, if there are any other requests to speak to the board on this topic, I'd like to hear them before decisions get made.
Let me check what we have for requests to speak. We have an item regarding the Hudson High School. Mr. Schoberg, regarding the sustainable architecture for any new building. Does that relate to the item that we're discussing?
No, so something else.
Okay. High school and board policy, so
So no requests at this
no
time?
request to speak on that.
Good.
Okay, Mr. Weiss is... Mr. Weiss, go ahead. We're talking about the new elementary school site selection. Okay, Mr. Weiss, along with, I would just ask that, along with all the other requests to speak, if we could keep the comments to around 5 minutes, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we'll delete the other request. Kurt, go ahead.
Yes, my name's Kurt Weiss. I live at 613 Cedar Drive North. We're talking about selection of elementary school site. Is that right, Mr. Turnahoy? There's a lot that goes into that. I think that Ms. Bowen-Egerbroden talked a little bit about the community input sessions, but she left a few things out. In fact, I was at one last night where there were several things brought up and there was no answers given. And I think before you select an elementary school site, I think that you should address some issues with the community that these things don't seem to be answered. Number one is, we don't have one slush fund in this district. We have two slush funds. And we have one that it totals about $17.5 million. We have another one that totals about $3 million right now, and that we're growing to $14 million. And you know, I think it's pretty sad when the board comes to the community and asks for any money when they have over $20 million sitting there. And I think the priorities of the board are a little screwed up when they set aside a $14 million slush fund for early retirement health care for the teachers when the teachers have refused to allow us to bid out the health care. I think the priorities of the board are a little bit skewed, if you ask me. The second thing is the entire board, all 7 members, and the school district administration have been extremely dishonest with regards to the operating expenses of a new school. I mean, I went there and you're telling us, I think the figure you gave us was $830,000 for operating expenses, the startup costs. When I have asked on several occasions, what's the operating expenses of the existing schools?
Mr. Weiss, could you bring your comments more
Well, one of the things that I think you ought to keep in mind is that these two gentlemen have done something that I was told I could never do. You can never say point of order at a school board meeting. I was told you could never do that. Mr. Kaiserschat knows that, too. I was told that you can't do that. So why is Mr. Schulberg and Mr. McClinsky able to do that? I was talking. I have the microphone. I've requested to speak, and I have the microphone. Why are they able to do that? Mr. Kaiserschat knows that I'm correct. I've asked that. I have asked that, and I've been told I can't do that.
Mr. Weiss, tell me what you're referring to. Are you relying on me as an authority for Robert's Rules of Order?
I have asked a point of order and been told, you can't do that. The person who's at the microphone has the microphone. Are you afraid to answer those questions, or what? I mean, if you're afraid to answer the questions, that's fine. I'll step down. I mean, is the board afraid to answer those questions, or?
Excuse me. Mr. Weiss, can you bring your comments to a conclusion, please?
Well, these guys are taking my time. They've taken quite a bit of my time. The operating cost given for this new elementary school at $830,000 is sorely underestimated. The operating expenses of the existing facilities are well into the $6-7 million at least for an elementary school. And I think it's a little disingenuous to the taxpayers to give that figure. And the other thing about, this is about site selection. If you want to wait, if I can wait until you talk about a referendum date, I'll wait till Ms. Bowen-Egerbroden talks about a referendum date. I'll wait for the other ones and I'll fill out another form for the referendum date. Is that all right?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chernahoy, for the honoring my request. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, we'll return back to the selection of the proposed new elementary school site. Again, do we have additional discussion, comments, motions?
Mr. President, just a couple of comments.
Mr. Bell.
And this is not a quantitative survey, just from interactions that I've been hearing, both in the community and actually from talking to many members of the community. And we talked about this last session, in our working session. No one's really brought a compelling reason why we should build on the Crosby Road site. And there seems to be a lot of reasons to build south of 94. We bus 500 plus students north of 94 every day. There's no school south of 94, and a number of other reasons that seem to be a compelling reason to put the school south of 94 versus at the Crosby Road site. And another consideration was if the community in the future decides to build a new high school, that we don't want to limit our flexibility in terms of how we build and deploy that school on that site, given that there's two parcels of land adjacent to each other. And to use one of them as an elementary school would reduce our flexibility should the community decide to put a new high school sometime in the future.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bell. Ms. Habish-Lean.
I will concur with Brian. The information that I've gotten from community members looking at the feedback from our sessions seem to support the Cooley Trail site for an elementary. Again, there seems to be a lot of discussion about secondary solution and the desire to reserve that space at the Crosby Road site for a secondary solution if that's determined.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions, discussion?
I guess I just also echoed the comments of my fellow board members. Everyone that I've talked to in the community and my own personal preferences for the Cooley Trail site for the same reasons given. There's no point in repeating them, but it seems to be overwhelmingly that would be the choice site.
Okay, thank you.
I also have heard that resounding sentiment that the site on F&FF is well supported in the community from the comments and feedback I've received. I do want to acknowledge that there have been several people who have preferred the other site, but overwhelmingly the support is for the southern site.
Okay, thank you. Well, that said, is this board ready to put forth a motion or recommendation as it relates to one of the elementary school sites? Mr. Holland.
Mr. President, I would move the selection of the Cooley Trail site as for consideration for a new elementary school.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Holland for the new elementary school to be located at the Cooley Trail site. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
We have a second from Ms. Habish-Lean. Do we have any further discussion?
Only that I would like to support Mr. Minnick's request for a roll call vote.
Okay. We have a roll call vote request. There's no further discussion. We'll start with Mr. Holland. If you're in favor of the motion, vote aye. Yes.
Aye. Holland.
Mr. Minnick.
Minnick, aye.
Chernahoy, aye. Ms. Crimmins.
Crimmins, aye.
Habish-Lean, aye.
Bell, aye.
Kaiser shot aye.
Okay. Motion is approved 7-0 for new elementary school to be located at the Cooley Trail site. Next topic for action is the potential City of Hudson petition for annexation, which would be consistent with the selection of the Cooley Trail school site. Mr. Erickson?
I'll give you a brief overview of the petition process. There would be three parties involved: school district, the township, and the city. And the first step is the petition is made for annexation, and it's filed with the city clerk. There is a review done by the city where they look at capital costs, for example, extending utilities out and various items. They may or may not have to submit additional information to the Wisconsin Department of Administration as they go through the process. There's a determination of fiscal impact to the city. They look at a budget study, and as it moves through that process, it takes a two-thirds majority vote by the city to approve the annexation. So any additional questions?
Any questions for Mr. Erickson regarding the annexation process?
I have a question,
Mr.
President. Not necessarily the process, but is there any discussions or discourse on perceived issues with this annexation happening that either you've seen on the facilities committee, or Mary you've seen, or Tim you've seen? Is there potential roadblocks in our way on this?
Well, we certainly can't speak for the city of Hudson or the town of Troy about that, but we have had conversations with them. And it seems like everything it was good to move forward, but things can come up along the way and we might not come to final agreement.
Right.
So there are things that could interfere, but we would hope that both Troy and Hudson would see this as positive for all the residents of both communities that are in our school district, because of the cost differential, particularly, as well as the location of the school and how it serves our community and would serve residents and students in both places.
I guess if I could just comment as well, Mr. President. Just the success of annexation or not would not affect, I guess, my determination that is still the preferable site. Even though it would incur extra costs, it would still be my first choice for a site.
I think what we've outlined in your board packet is the cost with or without the annexation approval process.
Just a follow-on comment. Strictly from an engineering perspective, there shouldn't be any obstacles. We have had discussion with the consulting firm on a very preliminary basis. Mr. Tuig from SDS Architects, they've also had conversations with the city engineering firm. A couple of options of how to serve the property, and costs have been developed, or what looks to be probably the most preferable location for the water and sewer. As far as, so that's kind of the mechanical side of things. Process-wise, that's why we're going to file a petition. I would dare speak to what the city of Hudson would do.
Does this require a motion, the application?
Ms. Bowen, Ingebrigtsen.
We certainly would think that's wise for us to do. It helps support that petition as it moves forward to the city.
And we can do that at this meeting. We don't have to wait until the next one to do that.
No, we own the land now, so that we could do it at any time.
Okay.
Okay, do you wish to put that in the form of a motion then?
Sure. Unless you want to.
Well, that's your
prerogative.
Okay. All right. I move that we approve the administration to make application to the city for annexation for the property which we own at F&FF.
We have a motion by Ms. Crimmins.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Mr. Kaiserschott.
Could I just suggest one change, and Cooley Trail instead of double F and County Road F?
Ms. Crimmins, will you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, I surely do.
Okay. We'll amend the motion to change the F and double F verbiage to the Cooley Trail location. Do the board members understand the motion before us? Any further discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr.
was there
Howard.
any time frame given in terms of how long the process of determination would take for annexation by the city?
Mr. Erickson?
It's somewhere, it could take up to 90 days, maybe even a little more than that. Could be less.
Okay.
My sense is we'll probably get this, if the board approves it, we'll get this to the city as soon as possible so that we can get it on their agenda.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. The next item before us for topics for action is a selection of the proposed new elementary school referendum date. In your board package, you'll find some information about this, and Superintendent Bowen Ingebrotten will cover this topic. Okay, we do have a request to speak on this item. Mr. Kurt Weiss, I believe you want to speak to this item? You have 10B, and we're at 10B on the proposed new elementary school referendum date. Why don't you come before us and present your comments?
I was under the opinion that maybe you would discuss it first and then take comments. Why would you take comments before you discuss it? I'll defer my comments till after you discuss it, because I might not have any comments if your discussion goes the right way. So why don't you talk about it and I'll come back up.
Okay, we'll proceed with the discussion on this. Superintendent Bowen Ingebrotten, if you would discuss this topic.
As we look at a decision about the date for a referendum for the potential elementary school that we've been talking about for some time, it's important for us to start with the date that we need that school to open. So as we've discussed, we look at opening it up in the fall of 2008, 2009. And knowing that our elementary enrollments have grown beyond the projections already, that date becomes even more critical as we look forward to continuing the quality of education and serving our children in our elementary schools. So with that in mind, the administration has looked at 3 different dates. And we also need to look at what happens from that referendum, a referendum that passes, to actually opening up the school, taking possession and then opening up that school. And there are essentially 2 different phases. There is the design phase and then the construction phase. And both phases are important as we look to opening up a school for the future. The design phase needs an investment on our part to research designs and to make decisions about what would serve our students in 2008 when the school opens, but have the flexibility to continue to serve it for many years to come. So we don't often open up schools, and this is an opportunity for us to translate our program into the design of the building. And I think that's a really critical and important phase, and one that we don't want to shortchange. The construction phase, again, takes a significant amount of time, and we need to provide flexibility during that time in case we run into unanticipated weather conditions, things that we know may not run as smoothly sometimes as we'd like to plan for, but it does take a significant time as well. And then there's the final part. Those are the 2 phases of design and construction. And then there needs to be a time period where we take possession of that school, and our facilities and grounds crews work on cleaning the school up, getting it ready to welcome our students and their families. So those three things in mind, and thinking about opening up in the fall of 2008, that kind of guides the dates that we can look at. Of course, a preference would be to have it on a regular election, if that can work in this time frame. And so our first look was at April 3rd. That is a spring election, and one that we wanted to consider in relationship to this time frame. From April 3rd, we have about 15 months to really taking possession of the school and getting it ready to open up in the fall of 2008. That time frame, as I talked about, would greatly condense any time we had for design, to actually look at other schools, to involve community members and staff members in being part of that design of the school. That would almost be totally impossible for us to do, and would really collapse very significantly the design phase. I can't even think of what that would look like because of the time and how much we have to give to the construction phase when we're only looking at a 15-month period. With that in mind, that obviously the administration would like to be able to recommend that date, but we can't in all good conscience recommend that date and feel that we could open up a school for the fall of 2008. We would be more likely to open up a school somewhere during the school year, probably halfway through the school year, with that date as a referendum. And so that was something that we're really focusing on, the fall of 2008, knowing what our enrollments are at the present time and looking at enrollments continuing to grow in the future. So the next date we looked at was February 20th, which is the primary date for the spring election. This gives us a 17-month period. It certainly gives us more flexibility than the April date. But when we look at a primary date, we don't know if there's going to be a primary. And we really don't know that until January. So we don't know if we would afford the cost of a special election in February as any other date. Again, the time frame is collapsed in February, and I know our architects are going to talk more specifically about that. But that is one thing we've asked them to look at, the February 20th, and speak to that time frame for a referendum. Then the last date we looked at was December 12th. The soonest, basically, that we can put a referendum forward is December, based on the timeline that we have, the 45-day timeline that we have, based on passage of a resolution for the referendum that you would need to do at your next meeting. And so December 12th was the last day that we looked at, and obviously that isn't a scheduled election day, so that would require a special election. But it does give us 19 months when we're looking at, say, an occupancy in July of 2008. So with those things in mind, I'm going to ask Tom Tuig and maybe Tom Hanley to talk more about the information they have in the handout that speaks to the schedule of design and construction. Tom?
Thank you. If you look at page 4 of that handout that I distributed, it's got a couple of schedules in there, one for the December referendum and one for the February referendum. And as Mary indicated, 17 months, 18 months is really a minimum that you look at design and construction of a facility of this type. The December referendum, what we've allotted for design is 4 months, which leaves approximately 14 months for construction. We feel that a facility of this size could be constructed in 12 months. Larger facilities have been constructed in less time. But the earlier referendum date allows for a little more flexibility in both design and construction. You don't want to shortchange the design period so that you're limited in looking at different options, life cycle costing, things that really affect the overall operation of the facility and really can save money in the operation of the facility. So that really allows for a little more time to work that process through. Traditionally, our busiest time is over the holidays. We spend a lot of the Christmas time putting our documents together for spring construction because historically and traditionally, that's when the best value is obtained as far as a public bid situation. The earlier you can get that bid package out onto the street, the better value it appears on bid day. The February referendum, as I said, we really looked at a minimum of 4 months for that design period, which puts the receiving bids in the middle of July, with construction starting as soon after that as possible. 12 months really does not allow for any latitude in things that can come up during construction, strikes, inclement weather, that type of thing. So the December referendum just gives you a little more latitude in time and flexibility, and really allows you a little more time to take a look at different options, take a look at some of your other facilities and determine what you like about those and what you can incorporate into another school. So with that, I'll take any questions you may have at this time.
We have any board members' questions for Mr. Tuig?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Tom, what do you estimate from the time that you go to bid till the, really twofold question, from the time that you go out to bid, what's the time period for bids to come back in, and then secondly, awarding of the contract?
Usually the bid period is a month.
30-day period?
Yeah, and that gives the contractors enough time to put their prices together. It allows enough time for conscientious bidding to occur. After that, we usually allot about 2 to 3 weeks once you receive the bids for contracts to be let and construction to begin. A lot of that depends on the board, how quickly they can act, and then also depends on how the bids come in. If they come in as you anticipated, you usually proceed accordingly and expeditiously. But if there's any, if you're overbid or there's some discrepancies in the bidding that have to be worked out, it usually occurs in that 2 to 3 week period.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Crimmins.
Yes, the question that I have is on the bottom of page 4, you say that the reduced construction period of 12 months could have a higher construction cost. And recognizing that you can't know in advance what that is, and that's why it's stated without amounts. If we were looking at the, in your professional opinion, a range that we could expect if we did incur higher costs because of the condensed time,
Right.
what would that ballpark be?
I would say 3 to 5%. It's just a ballpark guess, but usually when we have projects that have kind of a condensed construction time, you pay a little bit of a premium for it. The contractors have to pay overtime if they have to meet the schedule. So there is some legitimate costs that get factored into their bids. It's hard to calculate, but,
Okay, thank you.
Superintendent Bowen Ingebrotten.
There are a couple things that are not on the schedule one thing that isn't on the schedule that we didn't talk to Tom about including that I think we just need to keep in mind. The schedule starts from the date of either of passage of the referendums, but we have not gone through the process of selecting an architect for the design and construction phase. That's a significant process that we also have to include, and we've very purposely not incurred that cost to the district until we're looking to have the passage of a referendum. So we're delaying on that selection. We have incurred a amount of cost just for the support that SDS has given us through this process so that we knew the cost of construction and could bring that to you. But we really haven't gone through design at all, and we need to interview, we need to put an RFP out, we need to interview architects for that, and that in my mind is going to take a few weeks at least, even if we condense that portion. It's a few weeks to a month just for selection of that architect. So that would be on the front. I would also point out on the page 2, in the column under February, if you go about halfway down and you look at the received bids August 13th, 2007, and then look at begin construction, it's only a few days later, which really, it collapses, as Tom's talked about, this whole process of construction. And really, that would be very difficult for us to actually meet that timetable. So I'm assuming it would be extended even a little further.
I'll just...
If I just could.
Mr. Kaiserschott.
Thank you. Tom, you've obviously got a lot of experience with projects of a similar nature, similar size. Mm-hmm. What would be a mean or an average project time? So I can put this in some frame of reference.
For construction or for the total project?
For the, from start to finish, just like what we're looking at here, we got the 12 months using February, 14 plus months using December.
Right.
What... if you can think of the last few dozen projects you've been involved with of a similar size, what would be, again, sort of an average or a mean time frame?
I would say 18 to 20 months.
18 to 20 months.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Other board member comments, questions? Tom, I have a question as it relates to, I'm sensing from your asterisk at the bottom of these pages, you've indicated that in a more compressed time frame, looking at February or later time frame, that could result in the higher costs and the potential risk of not meeting our timeline for opening of the school in the fall of 2008. Mm-hmm. I would imagine, if you couple that with the uncertainties of weather, the annexation process, I notice you have an item here as it relates to, if we have to go to on-site well and septic, requiring some additional design and DNR review time.
Right.
Does that present, a more compressed, I would imagine a more compressed timeline probably provides a little more discomfort for you and your planning for this project, so.
Right. Well, I think, the schedule on page 4 is really assuming city utilities, and then if you go back to the other schedule on page 2, that reflects the on-site utilities, which adds some time to the design, about a month to design and another 3 weeks for the review process. So that just gets taken out of the construction period, which makes it even a little more stringent. In projects where you've got to be completed on time, they've done liquidated damages or actual damages written right into the contract where the contractors pay. Similar on highway construction, I really don't like those personally because they're hard to enforce. But they have been done, where you have got to have something done on a certain date. But then that's usually reflected in the contractor's bid. They've got to hedge their bets.
Okay, so if you were to advise the board, you would probably recommend either, end of the year or early beginning of the year time frame.
Yes.
Okay. Any other?
Mr. Chair, just a quick comment, and Tom, you can add on to this if you want to, but being pretty familiar with the construction business, I can't imagine a worse time to go out to bid than sometime in April or May. Your contractors are already getting busy. Personally, I'd like to see April even go off the table. I can't imagine going out and trying on a significant project to receive any kind of decent bid months of April and May. It's just like shooting yourself in the foot. And if you want to comment on that, you certainly can. But I know there's a premium the later in the year that you go, particularly if you're on a tight time schedule.
Right. Well, as I said, traditionally we're busy over the winter months, so they can start construction in the spring, get the building enclosed by the next fall, and then do all the interior work through the winter, and then the site work the next summer. So the later you start, the more the chances you're going to have to pay a little bit of winter temporary heating for the building, unless you get it enclosed rather quickly. Mm-hmm. So it impacts the budget the later you start in the season, definitely.
Mr. Chair, just another quick comment, kind of off the issue, but I think one that certainly is relevant, and I think it's kind of the comment, darned if you do and darned if you don't, that earlier this evening I made a comment that this board has been extremely diligent and working hard to come up with the options and have a qualitative process. And part of that process is to engage the community and have public input, which I think is correct. So because we've done that and we've legitimately gone out to the public, it has put us a little bit on a tighter time frame, or a little bit tighter of a window for our options to go to referendum, go to design, and I think, again, darned if you do and darned if you don't, but I think correctly so, this board has decided they're not going to spend the dollars on an architectural firm until we have the referendum or the approval of the voters. So that's another factor that has kind of tightened up our window of opportunity here. And I think it's and again, Tom, if you want to comment on it, you certainly can, but this board has done its homework, and because of doing that, we've kind of tightened up the window here for when to go to referendum and hire architects and go to bid, et cetera, all with the intent of bringing a building on board of 1 September 2008.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Minnick. We do have a couple members of the public audience that wish to speak on this issue. Lori Bernard first, followed by Kurt Weiss. If you'd like to come forward. And if you could state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Lori Bernard, 1509 Laurel Avenue. You guys have been talking about a pretty serious topic, and that's the notion of a special election. And as I'm listening to the discussion, I realize by about 2 weeks, this board has missed the opportunity to put this referendum to the voters on the general election date of November 7th, which quite honestly is really a shame when you think about the length of time that this planning has been going on during. 2 weeks sooner, if this discussion had taken place, we would have had the 45 days until the general election date. My concern is, I heard the comment made that in February it is a primary date, but we don't know if there will be a primary here in the Hudson School District. But the reality is there will be a primary statewide in the state of Wisconsin. And at least voters would have the knowledge that maybe we only have one thing on our ballot in the primary, and it's the referendum. But at least they would be aware that there's a statewide primary. 2 weeks before Christmas, there is certainly not an election going on anywhere in the state of Wisconsin that I'm aware of. So my concern is really, I guess, for the general public. We're talking about the comfort of the architects. Quite honestly, I think we should be talking about the comfort of the taxpayers of this district and making sure that our taxpayers are fully informed, that the election date that's chosen is one that will allow for maximum publicity of the election, discussion prior to the election. So that's really, I guess, my main concern. And the other question I would have for the board to consider before selecting a date is, would you go ahead with a referendum date prior to full annexation having occurred? Meaning full approval from the city, full approval for any intersection modifications that need to take place. It is a dangerous intersection, and I'm sure you guys have looked into it, but there are numerous accidents at that intersection, and I don't doubt that something will seriously need to be done. And then my final point is, I would hope that this board is cognizant of the notion that the dog track is not a done deal. The possibility of a casino going in at that site is not, it's not been completely eliminated. And while I don't expect the board to make a decision on what could happen in the future, be aware that that's not a dead issue, certainly not with the current Doyle administration. So with that, I thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss?
Well, I'm glad to see our friends from SDS back in the district. Last time they were here, Mr. Munich will remember, in October of 2002, was talking about fast-tracking the building and talking about referendum dates in October of 2002. And it was imperative that we put a referendum in February so we could have a building up the following fall. Well, Mr. Munich was disingenuous then, and he's disingenuous now, because now he tells us that it's imperative that we have a referendum in December in order to get a building up the following fall. And I have a tape of that meeting, Mr. Munich, if you'd like to see that. The point of the matter is this board has been talking about an elementary school for 4 years, Mr. Turnahoy, 4 years. And now, all of a sudden, you don't have the time to do it right and do it on a regular election day. You're going to look these kids in the eye and tell them that you're doing what's right for them. There's a regular election coming up, and that's where that referendum needs to be. Not on December 12th, when after the snowbirds vote, and then the retired citizens in our community, some of them leave to go to Arizona or Florida. That's why you're doing it. You're doing it for one reason only: voter suppression. That's the only reason why you're doing that. And Ms. Bowen-Eggerbrotten, to say that you can't in good conscience bring a referendum on a regular election day in April, you're bringing the disingenuousness to a new height. Even our former superintendent, who disgraced our district by taking funds to play in a golf tournament, taking district money to play in a golf tournament, said that the district is committed to having referendums on scheduled election days. And if you want a tape of that meeting, I have that too. Now, what's changed that the district is not committed to having elections on referendums on regular election days? Has something changed since Mr. Bernth made that comment?
Okay. Any additional discussion, comments from board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion for the item before us as it relates to the selection of a proposed elementary school referendum date.
Mr. Chair, I'll present a motion.
Mr. Minnick.
Present a motion for consideration of the board to go to a referendum for a 588-student elementary school south of I-94 on the date of December 12th, 2006.
We have a motion by Mr. Minnick. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Habish-Aline. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the December 12th referendum date, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion is unanimously approved. Next item on the agenda are the consent items, including personnel, expenditures, and bank depositories. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the consent items.
Mr. President, I move the approval of the consent items.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Holland, a second by Ms. Crimmins. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is approved. We'll next move on to the remaining citizens' request to speak to the board. We have a few more items. The next one, and I apologize if I mispronounce the name, Josh Koch Fogarty, if you'd like to come forward.
Did a better job than most people.
State your name and address, please.
Josh Cook Fogarty. I live at 861 McDermott Drive.
Thank you.
I'm a junior here at Hudson High School. I'll try and keep this brief because I know time's valuable to all of us. As a member of this community for a while, I've noticed that the issue of the capacity and the subsequent overcrowding at Hudson High School has been obviously debated by adults, the taxpayers, and the board member for a significant amount of time, while the students of Hudson High School, myself included, have stood by indifferently. To me, I just don't really think that's acceptable, that the people who are voting and making decisions on how myself and 1,700 other students learn have never spent a full day inside the walls of Hudson High School. I think it's time for those who are truly affected by the issue to get involved. It's time for us to step up. I understand that whatever solution, if any, is chosen that will not directly affect my class, we'll be out of the high school by then, and we'll be dealing with temporary solutions next year. So this is obviously not a self-serving endeavor, that we're looking to the future of this community and other students, the young people who are going to be, right now in elementary school, that we're talking about helping them now. They're going to have even greater problems when they come up to the high school. So this issue is really about what's going to happen for them. What I see from the community is not a discussion about what is best for the education of the young people, but the overcrowding issue has become an aggressive partisan battle based on using misleading numbers and proving the other side wrong, of people pushing their own self-interest. I think that the real issue has been lost. I would challenge the people of Hudson to become informed voters, and I don't mean just looking at the numbers and, trying to argue about which is right and which is wrong. I mean truly trying to experience the situation, if possible. My challenge to the board is to get this issue on the forefront of the agenda. I do recognize that Mr. Brian Bell spoke on this tonight, and I thank you greatly for that. It shows that the board has a commitment to this issue, and that they are working towards it, and I thank all of you for that. And the main point that I would have is that it's time for the students of Hudson High School to now start investing in our future, as we would hope the rest of the community would, and we would all like to take steps towards the improvement. We would just like to see something done. Thank you very much, all of you, for your time and the community.
Thank you, Josh, and we certainly appreciate your attendance here, as well as the other students of the Hudson High School. We certainly recognize you folks as important stakeholders in this discussion and debate, and we welcome your input as well. The next item, the next request to speak is from Mr. Roy Schoberg. If you'd come forward and state your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Roy Schoberg at 1108 Vine Street. I've been a resident of Hudson for 18 years. And I again want to say just what Josh said, and that is thank you, school board members, for all the time and effort you've put into this question before you, and for going out in the community and providing the information that the community needs. And I really do trust that by December 12th, this community can wrestle with the issues and come to a good decision. Sure, it would be nice to have it on the scheduled date, and I'm sure you would like to have it on the scheduled date too. It's just unfortunate, but we'll do the best we can, and we'll educate the population as much as we can. The reason I'm here is to talk about another concept, and that is sustainable architecture. We're at the critical time right now when we're starting to think about designing of buildings. I was at a public showing last evening at the Phipps Center for the Arts, in which they showed to about 150 people a presentation called An Inconvenient Truth. It's a publication given by former Vice President Al Gore, and it talks about global warming and what's in store for our children. And I thought that as we're now planning a new education facility, we're thinking about our children, we should not only think about how we educate them, but what impact we have on our environment. This will be giving us a great education learning opportunity to learn about the environment too. I'm going to start with just a statement from the Oregonian magazine. Parking lots that clean polluted runoff before it seeps into the ground. Roofs lined with solar panels. Waterless urinals. Huge windows that allow students to bask in the sun's rays. That's some concepts that I can't quite figure out. Waterless urinal, that stopped me. I didn't know if I was going to say it or not, but there's some concepts out there that are kind of on the cutting edge. But I just wanted to mention a couple things about our situation with global warming. Last year, 2005, was the warmest year on Earth in recorded history. Last year was also the highest level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in the last 650,000 years. We're heading in the wrong direction. And I think we can seize this opportunity to really be good stewards of our environment. Going back again to Oregon, this is Dateline September 28, 2006, not too long ago. The school board of a school out there voted on September 13th to build the district's first Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design certified school, also known as LEEDS. The certification comes from the U.S. Green Building Council, a nonprofit coalition that promotes construction of environmentally responsible and sustainable buildings. Quoting from the superintendent of that school, we see a great possibility with LEEDS in terms of good stewardship, saving dollars, and education opportunities for kids. The upfront cost is worth it, said the superintendent. Green schools can cut energy and water bills by 40%. So for this community's concern about operational costs, well, we're all in agreement we want to cut them down, and we can do it in that way. Another concept that's been ringing through the school board for years is environmental service learning. We've heard of service learning, now with an aspect on environmental issues. Let me just touch on a few key features of what sustainable architecture is all about. It involves site design, daylighting and windows, energy-efficient building shell, renewable energy systems, water conservation, green products, recycling systems, and better efficient transportation systems. Just recently, and this was just a couple years back, at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, there was a 3-day seminar. The topic of the seminar was designing sustainable high-performance school buildings. I bet a couple of our architects attended that. It was in May of 2003. And what they talk about is all sorts of these different ways that sustainable buildings cut down on construction, or if it brought into the early stages of construction, it cuts down on operating costs. But the biggest impact it's going to have on our kids, I think, is what it means to them as far as our community stepping forward to lessen our CO2 footprint that we're making on this earth. I think it's time for us to lead the way. So I'll close just by saying there were 150 people at the presentation 2 nights ago. They all want to do something. I mentioned there might be a new elementary school. They all rallied. So they want to be here. They want to provide you with resources and information to make this thing work. So I hope that the Facilities Committee will entertain discussions about sustainable architecture into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schoberg. The next request to speak is for Mr. Mishlinsky. And again, I would ask individuals to try to keep their remarks limited to 5 minutes.
I'm Robert McClensky at 1301 Freer Street in Hudson. A good number of high school teachers stopped by the McClensky house during Friday's homecoming game to visit and warm up a bit. That gave me the opportunity to ask some of them about one of my favorite topics, the conditions at the high school. The teachers gave me an earful regarding the stress that overcrowding is causing on the student population, as well as on the teaching staff and the administration. They told me about how the administration must spend more and more of its time dealing with fights in the hallways. They told me about how there is no food left to eat for the students in the third lunch period. They told me about students who need to eat standing up because they can't find a place to sit down in the cafeteria. They told me about the increasing number of teachers who have to teach from carts. And they told me about the teachers who get kicked out of their rooms during their prep period so other teachers can use their rooms for the classes. So I wanted to come by this evening to point these things out to you 7 school board members because, like me, you are not here during the day to see this. I want to speak out on behalf of the students and the teachers. When you board members go to work tomorrow morning in some office building or some other place of business, my guess is that you will be going into a very nice environment that someone has made sure is appropriate for your needs. But tomorrow, 1,700 students and 200 teachers, staff, and administrators will descend on this building into an environment that woefully does not meet their needs. And I think you should ponder this fact tomorrow while you are at work far away from this building. At the last school board meeting, 2 long-standing board members gave me the reason why nothing has been done about this problem for the last 3 years. I was told that the board has been, quote, looking in the rearview mirror at the 2003 failed referendum. Looking in the rearview mirror. God help this school district, where its leaders are paralyzed by fear of what they see in the rearview mirror, instead of energized by the vision that they have for the future. One board member actually stated that the failed referendum was just 3, quote, short years ago. Maybe those years seem short to you board members, but they were very long for me. I waited year after year after year for this school board to get down to the business of solving this high school problem, and I waited in vain. So let's take note of what has happened in Hudson during those 3 years, while the board was stuck in neutral and looking in the rearview mirror. Just look around this town at the new homes and businesses that have popped up since 2003. Does this city resemble what it looked like 3 years ago? Not much, I'd say. And what are the corresponding effects on these schools? Well, enrollment in the school district has gone from 4,604 in 2003 to 5,162 in 2006. That's an increase of 558 students, 12%. Enrollment in this high school has gone from 1,478 in 2003 to 1,700 in 2006. That's an increase of 222 students, 15%. A lot can happen in 3 short years. Even though probably where you and I work, things are probably pretty much the same as they were back in 2003. It's not the case here. So now that you've got your elementary referendum set for December, what are you going to do about the much bigger problem which is here at this high school? At your last meeting, the Facilities and Grounds Committee was, for the first time, instructed to start looking at some options. I wish I could comment on how that initiative is coming along, but the last Facilities Committee meeting was 6 weeks ago on August 28th. That followed a meeting 7 weeks before that on July 13th. And as far as I can see, no meeting of this committee is even scheduled for any future date. This is the most pressing single problem facing this school district and this community, and this committee can't even find the time on their busy schedules to meet to start to talk about it. And that's pretty sad. So let's review. The environment in this building where 1,900 people show up every day is bad. The environment where you and I work, good. Leading by looking in the rearview mirror, bad. Leading by having a vision for the future, good. A facilities committee that meets every 7 or 8 weeks to deal with what is a very pressing crisis, that's bad. A facilities committee that takes its job seriously, meets with all due and deliberate speed to deal with this crisis, that's good. Thank you, and I look forward to keeping close tabs on your progress.
Thank you. I think that concludes our requests citizens to speak. At this point in time, it's board administrator response to public comments. I just have a few comments as it relates to the issue with the secondary, the high school, and addressing that need. I, as a board member, certainly have been very concerned about this issue going back to when the task force report came before us back in January of 2005. I think at that point in time, the board looked at that report and saw it as a very a viable and sort of a template for us as we go forward in considering future building and facility needs of the school district. But I guess I would just ask the public to keep in mind and look at this board today. There are lots and lots of new faces. I would venture to say that maybe 3, 4 out of this whole table is new, or are existing board members. The rest are new. We've had to deal with quite a bit of change over the past 2 years. And I think in fairness to both board members and new administrators over that period of time, including a new superintendent, I, as one board member, felt that it was important to give those individuals the opportunity to learn about this school district, give them the opportunity to draw their own conclusions and make some decisions for themselves and recommendations as to the direction of the school district. So I felt like I was being fair to those individuals before making a final decision. The other part to this equation is that, as we've heard earlier tonight, we've had to deal with some projections that have been wrong. We've relied on some very, what we've come to believe as experts in this field in terms of growth projections, enrollment projections for the school district. We far exceeded those. When 3, 4, 5 months ago, when we were trying to decide which of these priorities do we put forward, we decided on the elementary school based on that information that we had at the time. Well, since that short period of time, that information has changed quite a bit. And so now we're looking at even a stronger need at the secondary high school level than what I had envisioned just a few months ago. So this is not an easy project. This is not an easy job for us. I, as one board member, am trying to do my best to make good decisions for this school district. I'll continue to do that. I'm committed to quality education in the school district. I'm concerned about these individuals that are standing or seated down in front. I have three students myself, 2 in the high school, that are also dealing with the same space issues, the crowding, trying to get from class to class, the heavy backpacks that they're carrying from one end of the building to the other. So I'm very much aware of this situation, and believe me, we will address it, but we are trying to prioritize the needs of this school district and do what we think the community is willing to support as we go forward.
Mr. Chair, I also have a couple comments. Bob, as you well know, I am chair of the Facilities Committee, and I know you have a passion for the district, and I applaud you for that. Quite frankly, I wish every citizen in the district had your passion for the district. Having said that, first I would invite you to our next Facilities Committee meeting, which is Monday the 16th, and I do think we are meeting on a more regular basis than every 7 or 8 weeks. We try to be diligent about our work, and but secondly, I think for the benefit of the district, what I would ask you to do is join with the board and join with the citizens and link in arms with us to have a successful referendum on the elementary school, which is, by the way, a recommendation that came out of the Facilities Task Force, which I know, even though you were not a member of, you might just as well have been, because I think you were at virtually every meeting. Hopefully we're successful with that, and we can begin to refine and kind of focus in on secondary solutions. The last comment I would make is that we have, as a board, designated $1.9 million to explore short-term solutions for the secondary grades. I don't know what those solutions are right now. They are not long-term. But I think it is incumbent upon us to address those short-term solutions and come to the best that we can for the students as well as for the taxpayers of the district. And Bob, I'll just conclude by saying the secondary solution for this district is not going to be an easy one for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the tax impact. But it's going to be a long process, and even after the defeat of the 8-9 referendum, I said to the public, and I apologized to the students, I said it's going to be at least 5 years before you see anything with bricks and mortar for a solution on a secondary school. It's going to be longer than that. And I think I would be remiss as an elected board member to say that a long-term secondary solution is 6 months, a year, 2 years out there. That's simply not the fact. So we're going to have to, as a community, engage for short-term solutions as we go down the road to a long-term secondary solution. But I just, if you think I'm offended by your comments, I'm truly not, Bob, because I know what your passion is, and I applaud you for that. And what I would encourage you to do is stay engaged and be a willing participant, just like you've been in the past over the last 2 to 3 to 4 years.
Thank you. Ms. Crimmins?
Well, I would like to address some comments. First, I want to address the comment made that suggested that the architectural firm ATS&R was disingenuous in 2002 and is now disingenuous again. My experience has been that they have been not that at all, and in fact are just highly, highly reputable and very helpful to us, and not in any way disingenuous. And so I wanted to make that part of the public record. I disagree with that statement, and as a person who has been on this board, which has been the benefactor of much of their support and much of their work, and I just want to thank them publicly for that, and really ask them not to be offended by that public comment. I also wanted to say that I don't know anything about two slush funds, but, if somebody's making slushies somewhere, I think we should find out about that. I guess I just find sometimes the comments, I guess what I want to say is shame on you to persons in the public who take the opportunity to that we give them to speak to us on an issue and use it to make accusations, character assassinations, and statements that they think reflect on the motives of this very hardworking group of people, the administrators, the board, and the professionals that we've engaged. And I think that I'm more than happy to listen to the public comment. I'm not more than happy to listen to assassinations of character. And I don't appreciate the use of the board's time or my time for that purpose. And so without being too obnoxious about it, I guess I just want to say I wish I hadn't asked you for the opportunity for people to speak outside of the time to speak to the board, and I'm sorry that I did that. I won't give that opportunity again.
Okay, any other comments, Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to just briefly say that I think what we're doing here gives us time to get this elementary school, get this problem moving forward from this challenge, and let us really focus, once we successful in the referendum, is to really focus on this high school. I'm chairing the long-range strategic planning committee along with yourself, Dan, and Tracy, and I think we have the opportunity here to really rally the community about taking Hudson from a great, a strong school district in Wisconsin to one of the best schools in the world. I think we can do that, and I think, the shape of our secondary education, the shape of the building, it all is going to fall into our curriculum and what the plan is for Hudson from a long-range strategic plan for our school district. So I welcome the opportunity to successfully pass the elementary school and really rallies the community around this high school or secondary school about how it looks and how it helps propel Hudson to be a school district of excellence worldwide.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, just a few comments. I see that Mr. Weiss has left, but just sort of to dovetail what Board Member Crimmins had said regarding a slush fund, I can only presume that he's referring to our fund balance, and I would invite Mr. Weiss to contact Mr. Erickson for a very thorough explanation about what that fund balance is. I believe it's been explained several times, but if it needs further explanation, I know that Mr. Erickson will be glad to speak with Mr. Weiss regarding that. It is not a bucket of money. It is money. Some of it is not even money. It's accounts receivable, et cetera, cash flow. There is a small amount of that money that has been set aside for these capital projects, but to characterize it as a slush fund is rather inaccurate. Second of all, I believe Mr. Weiss made a comment regarding some of the operating costs and that we were being dishonest or disingenuous, I believe is the word he used. The figure that Mr. Erickson provided for us, which I believe was about $830,000, give or take, was meant to indicate the additional costs that site will entail with regard to administration, custodial staff, even utilities. It does not indicate the entire cost of operating a full elementary school such as EP Rock, and that's not what it was meant to. It is just to show what those additional costs will be to get that building up and running. Obviously, as teachers move in to be teaching students, there will be salary that follows with them. But I hardly view that as being dishonest. I guess my last comment would just be to Mr. McClinsky, who I think is still here. And I guess I make poor analogies, Bob. I am the board member to which you're referring to that mentioned looking in the rearview mirror. What I meant to convey by that, of course, is learning from our experience. The referendum in 2003 was a bit of a train wreck for this district, and as a student of history, I do think you ignore the past at your peril, and what I meant is that we needed to retool the way we went about these projects. In no shape, manner, or form is the high school being ignored. We know we have space issues all over. My son attends this building. I know what it's like, Bob, and it needs attention. But we are taking this in a phased approach, and we've wrestled with this a lot over the last couple of years. I know you may view it as inaction, but really it's been an awful lot of work to get to where we are today. And what we have tried to determine is what's going to be our best chance for success. And we have problems all over, and it's been, I'll use the term a phased-in approach. And just as Mr. Bell had indicated, hopefully with a successful referendum from elementary school, we will be attacking the secondary problem full force. It's certainly going to get my attention, and I know my fellow board members as well. So I'm sorry that it's not as fast and as comprehensive as you would like, or even I would like. In a perfect world, certainly I could concur with a lot of your views, but we're trying to make this work with what we have, the tax climate that we have in this town, and it really is a challenge, but we will get there, Bob. So I just wanted to state that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Superintendent Bowen Ingebrod.
I think we would be remiss tonight to not recognize our high school students, who I'm very proud of. They are models for all of us about how to express their opinions in a very thoughtful, respectful manner, and yet it may be an opinion that is not shared by everyone, and I really compliment you for that. Josh, your comments, you were very articulate and very thoughtful in those comments. So we really appreciate that. And so I'm sitting here thinking, how can we take all your talents and energies and involve you in the big decisions that we're making as we move forward with an elementary school? And those are things I'm going to continue to think about and look for ways to involve you, because you have a lot to offer for us.
One more thing.
I have one more thing, too, that I'd like to just address Mr. Schoberg's comments about sustainable architecture. I think that's something, I saw some nods around the table. I've been involved in Leeds construction before. We can look as we interview architectural firms in the future, knowing that we're looking forward to that referendum, the passage of a referendum. We can look for that kind of expertise in our architects and those that we can put that actually in the RFP so that they can help us and guide us with that, because I think that can be something that we work forward to and help reduce ongoing costs in the district.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members?
Well, I just wanted to say I love that idea. I'm really excited about the idea of green building, and I hope that we can incorporate lots of that into this new architecture.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statutes 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, for the purpose of negotiations of labor contracts. So, entertain a motion.
So move.
Mr. Munich makes the motion. Second by Mr. Bell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll go into closed session. Thank you.